Hi everyone, my name is Debra. I'm an alcoholic.
Hi, Debra.
Very grateful to be asked to speak today, although a little bit nervous. I do have experience with these steps as they're laid out in the book of Alcoholics Anonymous with two big book step study sponsors that I'm very grateful for. A very loving higher power that I found here. Meetings like this and people like you. Working on amends, getting ready to do one very soon, just trying to set up a time. And practicing the latter steps and all the steps to the best of my willingness. I'm not going to go through a drunkalog. I qualify, Started very young, 13 years old, and was off and running. And I had a long run. I didn't get here till I was 39, so I drank all of those years alcoholically, and other substances were added. Although I have to add this, that I don't recall a lot, but I don't think I ever put a drug into my system without having a lot of alcohol in my system first. Mm-hmm. So, be that here or there. I'm trying to remember, I don't know if I was 14 or 15 years in Alcoholics Anonymous before I found this big book step study process. My sponsor had come in and was, urging me to come and sit and listen to some of the meetings. And of course, the very first meeting, they're on the sex portion of step 4, which and I remember I was sitting right up front, and I think my eyes were the size of saucers, and my mouth was agape, and I'm like, holy, you know what? And I just wanted to run out of here screaming, because that was a portion that I didn't want to look at for sure. So I didn't come back for a while, but I did come back when I became, more restless, irritable, and discontent in sobriety. I almost hit an emotional bottom in sobriety, and I knew something had to change. I knew there had to be more, and there was. I just was a little reticent to come in here and take a really, truly honest moral inventory, because I knew I wasn't going to like what I saw, and I spent my whole life running. So, the idea of doing this was complete opposite of everything that my inner being told me I should be doing. But, so I came in and, I started working, and, it's hard for me to talk about being able to start step 4 without saying something about step 3, So I was desperate and truly willing. I was kind of beaten down again, almost akin to how it was when I first got sober. So I was really willing, like, okay, And I had a relationship with a higher power, but it wasn't the deep kind of true knowing that I think I was looking for and needing. So, step 3 was very important for me, and I did a couple of formal step 3s, before starting this process, and each time they got more profound, I should say. So, I knew I had a higher power in my life that was going to carry me through this process. And then I was able to move on to step 4. And I got a notebook, and, my sponsor showed me how to, make the columns that are on page 65, And it was just, first of all, you just make a list. Make a list of everybody that you've had a resentment against. And for me, I love words, and it's strange to say in this day and age, but my giant dictionary is my favorite book. I look up all these words, and the Latin roots is for resentment, is to again, and scent is to feel. So you these resentments, I'm re-feeling all of these hurts and injustices and blah, blah, blah. You guys get it, I'm sure. And then in the dictionary also, it says resentment is indignant displeasure. I love that. And I realized that's how I lived my life. Yeah. I lived my life in indignant displeasure. And I carried it, and I wore it like a badge, and I carried that bag with me everywhere I went. And the heavier it got, the more I loved it. It was like, So I really got the resentment part, and writing the list was easy. It was easy. But, before my sponsor always said to me, before you write, light a candle, sit down, light a candle, say the third step prayer 3 times. Because for me, I can say the third step prayer because I know it so well, but I'm also doing like my grocery list and, go, when's my appointment, blah, 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 so I can do both at the same time. So if I say it 3 times, I'm really in that space come the third time. I slow myself down, I'm in the space. And then I also prayed for, clarity through my writing and honesty through my writing. And I asked my higher power to write through me. I just want to be a conduit for the truth. Because the truth was kind of foreign to me still in sobriety. Except I called it like embellishing or, it had these pretty names. But, I wasn't honest and I didn't always tell the truth. So I had to pray for those things before I even put pen to paper. And I made my list. And I listed people and institutions and what's the other one? I'm having
Principles.
Thank you, principles. See, I haven't even started on my first cup of coffee yet, and that's my problem. Well, it's one of my problems. Anyway, resentments. So I started writing them out, and on page 65, and I was told to face the facts, not the feelings. But in writing the resentments out, it kind of was feelings, and it was like, well, he did this, and she said that, and she snubbed me, and, but when it was, that's in the cause column, by the way. And then the affects my column, it was always, the first thing was always it affected my self-esteem, which is fear. And that's also how I live my life, And for me, I learned that, well, we're not talking about the fear portion now, but, for me, fear turned into anger. That was the way I handled my fear. So anyway, thus the resentment. So, it affected, my self-esteem, my fear, my security, my emotional security, every personal relationship I ever had was affected, because I had trouble. It says in here, that we have trouble with personal relationships. That's like the hardest thing we have, to do. It's like relating to other human beings, even still to this day, is hard for me. I'm so afraid that I'm going to say the wrong thing or do the wrong thing, or I might have a moment of low self-esteem, and I don't have much of a filter, so sometimes stuff comes out that's like, oh my God, it's like, oh God, take that back. And someone said, anything I say today is not original. I'm just copying things I heard that struck me, and I write everything down in my book, which looks like the rantings of a mad woman. But someone said that resentment is an acid that eats away at its own container. Huh? Yeah.
That's pretty good.
Yep. And that anger was far more addictive to me than alcohol. I can relate. I don't know. That's why I write these things down. And so, I made my lists, and it says nothing counted but thoroughness and honesty. And I really, for the first time, I think in my life, wanted to do a really good, thorough job at this, because I knew how important it was, and I saw how it worked in all of your lives, sitting here listening, because I wrote for a long time, but listening to how people live their lives now, in opposed to how they were before. And I saw people changing, people that were doing their writing before me and had finished the process. It was kind of a miracle to, see this happening. So, and I love this, we're upset at people, right? And this was really foreign to me. To conclude that they were wrong was as far as most of us ever got, but to see that they were also sick. Oh, that's hard, to be understanding and tolerant of those people that piss me off. That's a stretch. But I was also told by my sponsors that I had to pray for the people that I had these resentments against, So, so I'm writing these resentments realizing that, I personalized everything that happened in my life. Even though it didn't necessarily happen to me. I just, I think I wore my nerves on the outside of my body my whole life, So, it was, and so thus I didn't have any clear thinking. My disease had been telling me for so many years that, people are out to get you, nobody understands you, you don't measure up. Oh, I could go on for days, but, you get the idea. So I was angry and I blamed. And then, what has been said in these halls forever is when I have a resentment, I'm blocking myself off from the sunlight of the Spirit. So I had felt like I had been living in conditions that a mushroom grows in. And they like to grow in pastures where there's a lot of dung. Thank you, dung. So that's how I felt like I had been living. Excuse me. So I had to stop blaming people, places, and things. And that's what I was learning. But not yet, because we haven't gotten to the turnaround. So anyway. So I love this. We began to see that the world and its people really dominated us. And that was my life, I felt like no matter what I said, it wasn't right, no matter what I did, And, in this state of thinking that people really dominate us, that in this state, the wrongdoing of others, fancied or real, and I learned later on that most of it was fancied, had power to actually kill. And on this page of 66, there's 5 really strong, they're almost like death warnings if we live in resentment. And, it's like this business of resentment is infinitely grave. That's kind of scary. And grave means, it could mean terrible or deadly, We found that it is fatal, right? And the insanity of alcohol returns, and with us, and we drink again, and with us, to drink is to die. They're not mincing words here. This is really strong language. We had to be free of anger. But if we're angry, for us alcoholics, these things are poisonous. Poison is usually deadly. The wrongdoings of others, fancied or real, had the power to actually kill. Because I used to drink anytime. Well, I drank anytime. But, especially if I was upset or if I had felt like I had been wronged in any way, shape, or form, I realized that I drank at people. I drank to escape how I was feeling, but I drank at people. You did this, and it was usually people that cared about me the most, and the people that were saying, Debra, geez, we're really worried about you. You drink way too much. We're afraid you're alcoholic. I'm like, oh yeah, I'll show you alcoholic. Yeah. So, these warnings on page 66, they're not kidding around, So I had to understand as I was starting my resentments and my turnarounds that, though we did not like other people's symptoms and the way that they disturbed us, they, like ourselves, were sick too. And then there's a prayer for them, as I mentioned before. Pray for my enemies, pray for those people. God, help me to show the same tolerance, pity, and patience that we would cheerfully grant a sick friend. And I have to be honest and say that it took me a while to get there. I could say the words, but I knew I wasn't feeling it deep down in here, And not all sick people are alcoholics, There's a lot of sick people walking around, and they have their own issues. And it may not come out as alcoholism, but it comes out as other things, And I don't really get to say or judge what their deal is, which I learned in my writing. And I also learned that, the sick man's prayer is the beginning of forgiveness. That was also a tall order for me. Forgiveness was difficult. And not to go to the fight if I'm invited. I heard that right from the get-go. Don't go to the fight. You don't have to. Take the high road. I want to talk about the turnarounds. So I'd made my list, the people, the causes, and then, what it affected. So I was starting to see a pattern, and as I said, the biggest one was my self-esteem fear. So referring to our list again, we put out of our minds the wrongs others had done, and we resolutely look for our own mistakes. Where had we been selfish, dishonest, self-seeking, and frightened? Okay, where were we to blame? Yeah, I don't really want to go there, but I know I need to if I want to change, if I want to live the life that I'm promised in Alcoholics Anonymous. The inventory was ours, not the other man's. So when we saw our faults, we listed them, and we admitted our wrongs honestly, and were willing to set these matters straight. So, so I'm doing my turnarounds, and the first question in here is, where had I been selfish? Well, the easy answer is everywhere. Everywhere, all the time. But what I saw in my writing was that it always started off, my first line in that section was, I want you to do or be or act how I want you to be. Yeah. So that's the deal. You're not being who I want you to be or acting how I want you to act. You're not doing what I want. I mean, that's very selfish. Mm-hmm. What does that say? I want the world to revolve around me. I'm queen of the universe. And another thing I learned that I was controlling, do it my way. Because after all, don't I know? I mean, look at it, what a success my life is. It's crazy. And I wanted to be validated constantly. I needed atta-girls and pats on the back and kudos and for doing nothing. you know? And I didn't want to be dismissed in any way, shape, or form. Oh man, that went up my backside, sideways. Like, do not dismiss me in any way, shape, or form. You wonder why I have resentments? Oh God, to look back on this, I'm like, I was so sick. So the next question, where had I been dishonest? Or I call it, or the lie I told myself. And the biggest thing was, you don't care about me, or, as I said, I know what's best for you, and then the funny one is, it's not, but, this person is clueless. Like, they are so dumb. They don't know, like, I know they don't know. And, bottom line is, everyone's wrong. Everyone's wrong. So then I go on to, well, where am I self-seeking? So right away I start character assassinating, which is a forte of mine. And then I slow burn. Oh God, there's this little fire going on all the time, kind of like, when a volcano's getting ready, it starts that little bubbling, and I slow burn. And I obsess about straightening you out. This thing, goes on in my brain, and all these scenarios, and, I'm going to say this, and blah, 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 and it's crazy. But most of all, my self-seeking behavior was silent scorn. I can't tell you, in sobriety, throughout my whole life, but in sobriety, how many people I wrote out of my life. Like, you no longer exist. Or, if you're unfortunate enough to be living with me, you still don't exist. I won't talk to you for a month or two. There's no eye contact. It's like, oh my God. But see, that's me getting back at you. I've lost a lot of people in my life because I just like, you're on the S list. You know what I mean? And and once you're on the list, you don't get off. Sorry. So it gets down to, okay, where am I afraid? Where have I been fearful? And it's always that I'm not getting what I want or what I think I need, okay, from you, whatever. I'm not getting what I, being queen of the universe, what I deserve, okay? And then probably one of my biggest things was fear of other people's opinions, fear of what people are thinking about me, or, I'm crazy enough that I think they're, even like tittering to each other, like, oh God, you see what she's got on, and look how she walks, and look at the size of her ass. For years in sobriety, I wouldn't get a cup of coffee because I was terrified of what people were going to think of me as I talk about being self-centered. That's self-centered fear, And I was really afraid of not being emotionally secure, emotionally taken care of. Bottom line, I just don't like to be uncomfortable. I don't like to be uncomfortable. I want to feel good. I'm an alcoholic and an addict. I want to feel good all the time. Well, in the real world, folks, that's not really possible. So these are the things I was learning about myself. But then when I got to the truth, which, these are all kind of the truth, but, the truth is that my feelings were hurt so easily. And my negative reactions to all this stuff started the ball rolling with these crazy relationships and the way I acted and how I treated people and wrote them out of my life. And, and the bottom line too is I can't control how other people act, behave, live their lives. Like, I am powerless, which I learned early on, over people, places, and things. And people are people. Life keeps lifing. But, unfortunately, because I was reacting in all of these ways and having things come out sideways out of my neck, I was hurtful and I was unkind. And I was living on self-will run riot. Trying to juggle all of these balls just to make myself feel better. And the bottom line is, I need to go to God with this stuff all the time. Every situation, every day, no matter what it is. If I start to feel a little nudgy or uncomfortable with how someone is or some action or whatever, my first reaction is, grr, And then my second thought is, I go to God, God's waiting for me. Okay, Debra, come on. You know how to do this by now, And the fact is that I do know how to do this now. And it's my choice. It's my option whether I want to feel uncomfortable or be in pain or be angry or resentful. Or I've got the other option, which is, the promises of doing this work. To be able to live in this world with other human beings in a way that I'm not hurtful, I'm not, shoving people out of my life, just letting people be people and to center myself in my loving higher power's arms when I'm starting to feel resentful or angry or whatever. I understand today, how I am and what makes me tick for the most part. Believe me, folks, I am not driven as white as snow. I am still so human that some days I can't stand it. But at least today I have the knowledge and I have the option to take it in a whole different direction than that initial, what I spent my whole life in indignant displeasure. That sucks. Pardon my language, but, I don't want to live that way today, and I don't have to, because of coming here, doing this work, having wonderful women in my life, wonderful sponsors. And so I'm just going to end now. So if you are thinking of doing this work, or if you're just in the beginning of doing this work, don't let it be too daunting. It's a lot of writing, but the payoff is amazing. I get to live a life today where I am comfortable in my own skin. I'm not afraid to walk over and get a cup of coffee, because what you think of me is none of my business. So, I'm just so grateful to having come here and done this work and persevered through all the blood, sweat, and tears, because it really is a life second to none. So thank you.